Good afternoon, everyone. In just a minute, I am going to enter the June Keys penguin habitat to give our penguins some lunch. If you want to get a chance to see that, I'll be inside the habitat in just a minute. I just have to get my fish ready. I'm going to give our birds herring and capelin. And I'm going to go ahead and enter the exhibit. I might not be able to talk to you while I'm feeding, depending on how hungry the birds are. But usually this is a little bit more of a snack feed, so not everybody eats at this feed. We log every fish that we give our birds. And Miss Lily is the first at the bucket. So these guys are getting a combination of herring and capelin. Lily is demonstrating how they swallow their food whole. So you may have noticed that western gull that's hanging out above the habitat. He's trying to get some free fish. And penguins are a prey species, so if there's something flying above their head that looks large, they may not even exit in this case, the beach, but they're definitely going to be very aware of their surroundings. So I might not get too many more birds for this feed, but that's okay. These guys get fed 3 times a day, so they have 3 opportunities to eat. You might notice I'm getting up to feed certain birds. These birds have trained me quite well. They show me how they would prefer their food to be given to them. In Robbie's case, he likes to come up to where the water edge is and just kind of stand there and wait for me to toss him the fish. Ludwig can actually catch his fish, And these guys, for the most part, eat them head first because they have an adaptation in their mouth that prevents them from prevents the fish that go in their mouth from coming out. It's to help them capture their fish when they're hunting for them. So Ludwig's kind of interesting because he is able to eat his fish backwards. He's the only bird I really ever see do that. Everybody is a little bit different. So some birds are okay with me having things in my hands as I feed them. Others are a little bit more weary, like Floyd here. But of course, they know how to get the food. It's up at the bucket, so they have to come to me for it. Here, Floyd. Floyd's already had 4 herring today, so he's not very hungry, so he's kind of seeing how much can I make her move during the feed. Coming up to eat right now, this is Whatever. She is 16 years old. She is our oldest bird here at the aquarium, here in our June Keys penguin habitat, not necessarily the aquarium. And this is our annual migration time for our penguins. The next time they're going to have a big event is breeding season, and that's not until the middle of March. So these guys have a few more months to migrate. In their natural habitat, they migrate 1,000 to 3,000 miles a year. They're one of the biggest migrators out of any penguin species. And they would stop along little islands out in the open sea for rest, but for the most part what they're doing is they're eating lots of fish species and sometimes krill. We have 23 birds here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and all of them need to eat at least 2 fish a day, which is pretty easy at a time like this, but when they go through their natural molting period, it can be kind of tricky to get them the nutrients that they eat. No, don't do that. The reason they don't want to eat during molt is they actually bulk up ahead of time and they eat up to half of their body weight in food. Then they basically sit on the beach where they replace their feathers, and that feather structure is what's keeping them dry in the water. So if you take a look at our birds swimming, you can see bubbles, some air that they trap in between their skin and feathers to keep their body dry. The feather structure itself overlaps, so they have to spend about 3 hours a day taking care of these feathers. They usually do that in the morning. And I'm just gonna hang out and feed these guys for a few more minutes. I almost got Ludwig to eat, but that gull kind of scared him away, so I'm gonna try to give him one more opportunity. That was Paddles who just took a herring from me. She hatched here at the Aquarium of the Pacific 4 years ago. So Magellanic penguins only breed once a year, so that's late March. That's when they lay their eggs. Their eggs take about 38 to 42 days to hatch. They lay 3 to 5 days apart. And it looks like these guys are going to be done with their feed for now. So I'm going to just see if Matson and Ludwig come up because they have not eaten today. And that's okay. I'm sure they'll come up at the last feed. When it's migration time, these guys don't have as much of an urge to come out of the water to eat because if something spooks them, they're more likely to stay in the water and follow suit with the colony than to explore their surroundings. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this feed. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We are nonprofit, so your paid admission is going right back to these guys to give them the care that they need. In this case, it is restaurant quality sustainable seafood. And free health care. So Dee is one of our chicks that hatched this past May. She looks a little bit different than everybody else. She has subadult or juvenile plumage, and she'll keep that until their next molt, which is in late summer, early fall. So I'm going to get off the mic and feed a few more birds. I think they might come up. But if you come back out here at 4 o'clock, I will be giving these guys their dinner. you're just joining us, you're taking a look at our Magellanic penguins. We do have 23 here in our colony inside the June Keys penguin habitat. 13 of these birds did actually hatch here at the aquarium. 7 of them were Floyd and Roxy's chicks. So Floyd and Roxy are one of the pairs that we have here at the aquarium. These guys do mate for life, so Floyd and Roxy are quite bonded to each other, and it shows because they are so successful with breeding season. Now these guys are pretty timid right now because there's been a western gull that's trying to get free food. He succeeded, so now he's back again. I thought maybe he would leave, but it looks like our birds are spending most of their time in the water. I'm just going to see if I can sneak Ludwig a fish here because he keeps coming out, but he sees that gull. We do hand feed all of our birds here at the aquarium. But one of the tricks is if they aren't coming out of the water, you can sometimes feed them in the water, but that brings upon the gulls. So he might just have to wait until the last feed. We do offer these birds food 3 times a day. Oh, you can have it. All right, so I'm going to call this a feed. This bird right here, this is Admiral Fancy Pants. He has my favorite name out of all the birds here. He came to us from another facility, so we hope Admiral pairs up with one of our females this breeding season, but he's a little bit young. He's only 3. They usually get more involved in breeding season when they're about 4 to 5. And their breeding season is only once a year. So for the rest of the time, these guys spend a lot of time they do molt once a year, but they spend a lot of time migrating. So they're going to migrate for about 1,000 to 3,000 miles a year, spending time along the coast trying to find food. But our birds have year-round access to these burrows. So if you take a look at these 9 burrows here, our birds can go in them whenever they want. I just went up to Roxy and Floyd's burrow, so they kind of have the prime digs here, the water view, all that stuff. But there are 9 holes or burrows, and there are all pairs in all of them. Not everybody has had chicks before, but that's because they're a little too young. Again, you're looking at Magellanic penguins, just finished up their feed. And they're probably going to spend a lot of time in the water, so you guys have a good opportunity to see how these guys live their lives. They are pretty awkward on land, definitely made for life in an aquatic environment. And if you come back at 4 o'clock, we're going to feed our birds again. 4 tends to be a pretty successful feed for our birds. The feed I just got done with is kind of like a snack feed for them. If they're hungry, they'll eat, but usually everybody's gotten food by this feed. Thank you guys so much for supporting the Aquarium of the Pacific. We're a nonprofit organization, so your paid admission is going right back to these animals.